Thank you very much, Scott. My name is David Wood, and I am the Executive Director of GNTV Media Ministry. And we've worked with the Kentucky Annual Conference for your in-person annual conference gatherings for over 20 years. And we started doing virtual conferences in 2014. And obviously, the need for that has exploded dramatically in this 2020 year. And so we've worked with 23 other annual conferences already this year to have sessions where they came together to conduct the business and do the work of the annual conference. And part of that has been we've worked with other conferences to do district conferences. And tonight we're going to spend a little time walking through how this Zoom webinar platform works. And then we're going to go through some practice ballots because tonight, towards the end of this district conference, you will take a couple votes to approve the budget and the officers, the nominations for officers in this district conference. And so we're going to walk through tonight a brief agenda that helps you understand how all this works for this evening and for annual conference. So our agenda for tonight is to talk about the roles of panelist versus attendee, to then look at the chat feature, the raise hand feature, and the question and answer feature. After that, we are going to take a look at how GNTV provides a voting system, and we will do some practice votes. And finally, we'll make sure you know how to get a hold of our GNTV tech support team. We want to help you be successful, and our tech support team will help you be successful. So right now, I need all of you to spend a minute inside this Zoom application and try and find some key icons that are important for you to have accessible and to know how to get to. It's the chat, the raise hand, and the Q&A icon. The chat icon is where you will see announcements throughout this session tonight and during annual conference. This will be important information that everyone needs to know and see. This will be shared with you in a manner that allows you to even be able to click on hyperlinks and go to a particular website. So right now, my team is getting ready to send a sample announcement. So be looking for that chat feature. And then the raise hand feature and the Q&A feature we'll talk about shortly. If you cannot find these icons, you may have to move your mouse over the screen, put it here over my face. On a computer, you may have to click to get the menu bar to appear at the bottom of the screen. Additionally, if you're on an iPad or a Surface Pro, a touchscreen device, you may have to double tap in the video where I am right now to get that menu bar to appear. And finally, if you are on a cell phone, an iPhone, or an Android phone, there could be either 3 small bars or 3 dots in a corner of the screen. You may have to click on those bars or dots to pull up a menu that has those keywords: chat, raise hand, and Q&A. All 3 of those are going to be important for you to fully participate in this annual conference session. So the chat feature is first. It will be disabled for normal conversation, but it will be available for those of you who need important information as part of this session. So we'll be using that later tonight during the voting practice so that you can get messages about how to get our tech support phone number, and that you can get a message about how to vote, and with a hyperlink that will be clickable. So keep an eye on that chat window for those messages later. Next up is the raise hand feature. The raise hand feature allows you to seek to get recognized, to participate in the business of the conference. That happens by you making an entry into the Q&A system and then getting recognized by the bishop. When he calls on you, you raise your hand. That allows our tech team then to help you be successful. So this raise hand feature is a white or gray icon for most of you that you click on. When you click to raise your hand, it changes colors to be blue or green. So I would like to invite all of you to click on that raise hand feature right now. Leave your hand up so that it is blue or green and it says lower hand. That is how you know your hand is raised. If it says lower hand, you know that your hand is raised. So I'm going to give you just a minute to work through that. Hands are still going up. We're at about 80%. I'd love to see the rest of the hands get raised so that I know that all of you have found that chat icon. That would be extremely helpful. We're up to about 90%. There's a few of you who still need to raise your hand. Please look for that chat icon and raise your hand. So now we're going to turn our attention to another feature, the lower all hands feature. This is available to our tech team, and it allows our tech team to lower all the hands. So as you can see, if your hand was raised, your hand has now gone down. So what happens when you raise your hand during a conference session? Well, if you're going to be recognized, if the bishop has called on you because you're going to be recognized, you are going to be prompted to unmute yourself. And so in order for you to address the conference, you will have to click a button. Your camera is not on. You cannot turn your microphone on anytime you want. You must agree to speak. That happens when the bishop calls on you. You raise your hand, and then our GNTV tech support team prompts you to unmute yourself. You do that by clicking on the button that appears when we do that. So I'm going to go ahead and invite David Gibson to raise his hand. By random selection, I'd like David Gibson to raise his hand, and I can see that he's done that. And now he is being prompted to unmute himself. So he has received a prompt that will allow him to turn his microphone on, which he has now done. So David, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, thank you.
That is great. So, you are here and talking to us tonight. Tell me where you're from tonight.
I live in Cadiz, Kentucky.
And what church are you part of there in Cadiz, Kentucky?
Cadiz United Methodist.
Okay. Have you ever been to an annual conference before?
No.
Have you ever been to a district conference before?
Okay, there goes my dog. Yes, I have.
Okay, great. Was it hard for you to unmute yourself tonight?
Not at all.
Great. Do you have any questions for me?
No, it's pretty basic. It's self-explanatory.
Great. Well, I hope you feel that way about the voting in just a second. So I appreciate you chatting, and you have a great night.
Thank you.
So once David finishes speaking, just like anyone else who addresses the annual conference, those speaking privileges expire. Much like you walk to a microphone and speak when you walk away from the microphone having completed what you are recognized for, then the microphone is turned off. And that is how it will work at district conference and annual conference. If David wants to speak again, he can do that, but he'll have to be recognized again and prompted to unmute himself. And so now we turn our attention to the Q&A. The way that you get recognized is by making a submission through the Q&A. The Q&A is extremely important as it allows you to seek to participate in the work of the conference. Tonight, we're going to need some people to make a motion to approve the budget, a motion to approve the officers. You all can do that through the Q&A feature later. You also will need to second these items, and you would do that through the Q&A. We'll explain exactly how. In addition to that, you might want to speak for or against or ask a question. All of those things happen through the Q&A. So, let's say, for example, you want to make a motion. So if you want to make a motion through the Q&A, you click on that Q&A icon. It opens a window for you to enter information into, and you would type the word motion. Then you would insert the text of your motion. It is helpful for you to insert the text just as you would like it to appear. That allows our tech team to prepare a slide to show to everyone who's attending. It also allows your secretaries to be able to have that correctly available to the bishop as we work through the business of the annual conference. Let's say you want to second a motion that comes before the body. You would simply type into the Q&A, second the motion. And so this works much the same way that someone would do by raising their hand or saying out loud, second the motion. We need that written confirmation that a motion has been seconded. And then you will want to perhaps amend a motion. If you want to amend a motion, you would type the word amendment. Then you would insert the text of your amendment. And then you have to provide some additional information. We need to know where that amendment goes, whether that's a page, a paragraph, a line number, or a sentence that your amendment replaces or follows. Some identifying information is extremely helpful so that the context can be correctly identified for your amendment. Finally, many of the other things that you do typically by raising your hand to be recognized, you also do through the Q&A feature. And so you can request to make a speech for and a speech against. You may want to call or move the previous question to bring debate to a close. You may want to make a point of order, where you insert the point of order you want to make and then note the rule or book of discipline paragraph that is being violated. And then you may want to request a moment of personal privilege. This may be to offer a prayer request or to send greetings to someone who is unable to attend this particular meeting. Those are the things you do through the Q&A feature. Right now, I am going to invite all of you to click on that Q&A icon. I would like all of you tonight to tell me your church name and your town from where you're at. In addition to that, I'm asking you to include your name tonight. There are a few of you here who just have first names and a couple who have church names. So as you open the Q&A, please include your church name, your city, and your name, and send that through as a submission in the Q&A. This will be a record of our attendance for tonight. In addition, if you have a question, feel free to make a second submission. I'd love to take your questions and see if there's anything our tech team or myself can help address during this instructional time. So I can see that Brooke is here, Robert is here, Brian from Grand Rivers, James from Cadiz, Brooke. So Brooke, interestingly enough, here's a great example, and Stephen is a great example too. So Brooke is here, but apparently using the name of someone else's Zoom account. Stephen is here with only a first name. So tonight when you join this session, if you got a pop-up box that asks you for a name and an email address, we need you to enter your full name and the email address when you join a session, particularly the annual conference session. We want to know who you are and make sure that you are someone that has voice and potentially vote at the annual conference or district sessions. But if you did not get that pop-up box when you click to join this session, that means that you have a Zoom account. This is where it gets a little tricky. Tonight in this Q&A, you may be seeing your name. If you've upgraded to the most recent version of Zoom, when you make a submission through the Q&A, it shows you your name as it appears in Zoom. If you're on a slightly older version of Zoom, instead of showing your name, it might say something like you or my question. So if you're not seeing your name, you may want to update your version of Zoom to be on the most recent version. You do have to be on a version of Zoom that is newer than May 31st in order to fully participate in the annual conference session. So if you're not seeing your name, we need you to go into your Zoom profile settings tonight, or if you're not seeing your full name and you are just seeing a church name, or perhaps some of you entered the voter ID to join tonight, you need to go back into your Zoom account after this session, and you need to go to the settings area. And depending on your device, it will be under the general settings area or the profile settings area. And you need to find the area for your name. Zoom only requires a first name. We want you to have a first name and a last name, and hopefully an email address that's affiliated with your account that the conference would recognize, so we can help verify who you are as you attend one of these sessions. I can see that many of you have posted tonight into the Q&A just like I asked. It looks like we are close to all of you doing that. One thing I see several instances of tonight is people who have joined with a church name. So if you've joined with a group of people, perhaps all gathered together at your church, that's great. But if you are submitting to be recognized in that scenario, you must also always include your name. So let's say, for example, you are there at a church that has joined as a group. You are all watching together. Like PUMC, which is Providence UMC, is here tonight. I don't see whose name that is unless you tell me. And so in her submission, Kathy Price told me her name from PUMC. If she's watching with others, she needs to start every submission with her name. So it would say, Kathy Price, motion, approve the budget. Just an example of something that might be applicable tonight as we work through our business. So your name is extremely important in Zoom. I appreciate you spending a little bit of time to make sure your name is up to date in your Zoom account if you did not see that pop-up box when you joined tonight. If you did see the pop-up box, remember to enter your full name and your email address in that pop-up box. Do not enter your voter ID, just your full name and the email address. We're fixing to talk about where you use that voter ID. So we're going to turn our attention now to voting. The GNTV system is designed to be a web-based voting system. It takes place outside of the Zoom webinar and requires you to open a web page. You will need to use a program like Safari, Firefox, Microsoft Edge, Google Chrome, or Internet Explorer. You may want to do this on a second device, like a smartphone or a tablet. Many people find that helpful to watch this Zoom webinar on one device and vote on a second device. You will open the web page vote.gntv.info. You will be able to find an announcement that helps people get to this web page in the chat during each session when voting is occurring. So after you get to this web page, there are some key steps that you are going to walk through. The first step is going to be entering a ballot code. Every vote we take will have a unique ballot code. That ballot code will be given to you in red on the screen each time we go to take a vote. You will enter that ballot code in the box and then click the green Load Ballot button. After loading the ballot, you will be on the second page, the actual ballot page, and at the top of this, you will need to enter a voter ID. We will all be using the same voter ID during tonight's conference, and that voter ID will be provided to you on the screen. You will click on the words "Your Answer," and you will enter the voter ID. You will then make your choice to answer the ballot, and then you will click that blue Submit button. After doing that, you will then receive a confirmation message if everything has gone smoothly up at the top of the screen. On a cell phone or a small portable device, you may have to scroll up to see that confirmation message, and then click that green Return to Start button to get ready for the next ballot. Let's watch a short video that walks us through these steps as they take place on a computer so you can see exactly how this happens and be ready for our first practice vote coming up momentarily.
Welcome to the online balloting system, coordinated by GNTV Media Ministry. Each of you should have received a 6-digit voter ID number in your email inbox. Please have that number available and convenient during the balloting process to help expedite our work. You may also wish to have a second device available for casting your ballot, such as a smartphone or tablet. To begin your ballot, please open a web browser on your computer, tablet, or smartphone and go to vote.gntv.info. If you have one available, it is recommended to use a second device other than the one you are viewing the Zoom broadcast on to allow you to follow the on-screen prompts shown in Zoom during the voting process. When prompted by the moderator, please enter the ballot code for this ballot that is announced and shown in red on your screen in Zoom. Please note the ballot code is case sensitive and must be entered exactly as shown on screen. After entering the ballot code, please click the green Load Ballot button. When prompted by the moderator, please enter your voter ID number and make your selection on the ballot. After filling out your ballot, please click the blue Submit button located at the bottom of the ballot. After submitting your ballot, you will receive a message letting you know your vote has been recorded. Please then click the green Return to Start button located at the top or bottom of your page to prepare your browser for the next ballot.
Just a reminder as we move forward, if you are watching this together with someone else and you are going to be voting, you each can vote. You can watch on one device and vote on the same or a different device. As you vote, please vote once for each person who is attending and voting. A few of you had questions about that. You also, during the voting, can reach out and contact the GNTV tech support team. Our tech support phone number for you to reach is 478-245-4042. You all have not received a ballot code. You will get that when the ballots are opened. A voter ID will be used by everyone tonight as we vote together during this conference. So 478-245-4042 is how to get a hold of our tech support team. We are now ready to have our first practice ballot. So I invite you to open your web browser and go to vote.gntv.info. Our first practice ballot is a question about virtual conferencing. Do you thank God for virtual conferencing? This ballot is now open. The ballot code has appeared on the screen. That ballot code is GE001. That is like Garden Eden 001. We will all be using the same voter ID, so please only vote once per person who is eligible to vote. The voter ID for today is 797379. That is 797379. So you've gone to vote.gntv.info. You've entered the ballot code GE001. You've clicked the green Load Ballot button. And then at the top of the next page, you've clicked on the words Your Answer, and you've entered your voter ID 797379. Then you make your choice, and you scroll down to click the blue Submit button. After clicking the blue Submit button, you can scroll up to the top of the screen to see a confirmation message if everything has gone smoothly, and then click that green Return to Start button to be ready for our next practice ballot. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to work through this process. Okay, we are preparing to close this ballot. I'm going to give you 15 more seconds to work through this process. If this has been challenging for you, please reach out to our tech support team at 478-245-4042. Our tech support team is standing by. If we are all busy, we will call you back so that we can make sure you are comfortable with this process. And I'm going to declare this ballot closed. Once a ballot closes, we spend 60 to 90 seconds on tabulation to have the results ready and a slide prepared. That is happening right now while you are going to learn a little bit more about voter IDs. For this session tonight, everyone is using the same voter ID. That means that we are asking you to vote one time per eligible person. You can cast your vote one time per eligible person, and you have the ability to vote more than once on a device if several of you are watching from the same location. Husband and wife, a small group in a church. There are several different scenarios where this might happen. One of my favorites is a group from Montana where a 14-year-old granddaughter helped the delegates from a particular church do all of their voting during an annual conference session. Okay, we have some results. Let's take a look at those results. Okay, you all are off to a good start. So, do you thank God for virtual conferencing? 91.4% of you, 64 of you said yes. That is great because we are doing a lot of that. A few of you had invalid ballots. Please make sure you enter the voter ID exactly as it is given to you. You must enter your voter ID correctly in order to have a valid ballot. Make sure you are entering your voter ID exactly as it is provided to you and shown on the screen tonight. We're going to take our next practice ballot. Our next question is about you. I would like to know, do you have pets? So I am going to declare this ballot open. We are going to begin the voting process. Go to vote.gntv.info. Enter the ballot code GE002. Click the green Load Ballot button. If you are having trouble getting to the voting page, go to the chat there is a link you can click on there that will open a web browser on your device and help you get there successfully. On that next page, click on the words "Your Answer" and enter your voter ID. Let me read that for you so you can double check what you've typed. The voter ID for tonight is 797379. Then you make your choice. Do you have pets? And then you click the blue Submit button. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to work through that process. Okay. We are preparing to close this ballot. I'm going to give you 10 more seconds to finish up. And this ballot is now going to be closed. While we are waiting on the results of this ballot, I want to share with you a couple reminders about the Q&A feature. The Q&A feature is how you ask your questions. In fact, someone has asked a question now. You also participate in the work of the conference by making motions, amendments, seconding a motion or an amendment, requesting to make a speech for or a speech against. Also, you can move the previous or call the previous question to bring the debate to a close. You may want to make a point of order or request a moment of personal privilege. All these things you do through the Q&A feature that allows you to then be recognized and participate in the work of the conference. So Brian asks a great question. Can you change an answer before a ballot is closed? Brian, tonight you cannot change an answer. Since we are all sharing one voter ID, you get one submission, and that is what is counted. For annual conference, each individual will have their own unique voter ID. In that situation, if you vote once, you submit once while the ballot is open, and you realize, perhaps because the bishop said some clarifying things, that you want to change your vote, you can make a second submission. So if you voted yes and you want to vote no, your second submission can be no. It goes into our system and it takes the place of your first submission. So when you have your own unique voter ID at annual conference, your second submission, when the ballot closes, would be recorded as your vote. This does allow you to correct a mistake or a desire to change what you have submitted to be your final vote. Now, that only works while the ballot is open. So let's take a look at our results. Okay, a lot of you have pets. 70% of you have pets. And look at that. No invalid ballots. That is fantastic. We're going to take one more quick practice question before we continue on with the work of the district conference. So our final practice question tonight is about your church. I would really like to know, is your church holding virtual worship services? This can be a combination of streaming a live service or completely virtual. This ballot is now open, and I invite you to go to vote.gnTV.info and enter the ballot code GE003. Click the green Load Ballot button, and on the next page, click on the words Your Answer, and then enter 797379. Then make your choice, tell me about your church, and click that blue Submit button. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to work through this process. We are preparing to close this ballot. Typically, during annual conference, you'll have about 1 minute from the time the ballot opens to the time the ballot closes. We find most people can do this in about 30 or 40 seconds, and so that's typically plenty of time. And this ballot is now closed. I want to share with you, while we're waiting on the results, one of my favorite stories from the South Georgia Annual Conference. There's a 91-year-old retired minister who I've known pretty much my entire life. He's never owned a smartphone. He's never owned a computer. But when he heard that annual conference was going to be held virtually, he made the decision that he would want to participate. He asked his family to help him do that, and they got him an iPad and helped him get the right software installed. And then he began by attending these training sessions just like you've done tonight. He worked with our tech support team by calling us on the phone, and we were able to help him be successful. So we're going to put that tech support number up on the screen. Call us if this has not gone well for you. We want to help you be successful. That 91-year-old retired minister attended the clergy session and the annual conference session, and he voted on every ballot and did so without any help. Even though his family offered, he did it himself. And I invite you to have some patience and let us help you be successful with this process. We have seen that happen all across the country with people who will be patient and learn about this new experience. So, that is how we'd like to help you. And right now, I'd like to invite you to take a look at our results from our final practice ballot. 78.2% of you are having virtual worship services. I think that is fantastic. I think you will find that as we move forward, virtual worship services will be an important part of every church's ministry in the future. So now, thank you for being with us tonight and going through this instruction. We're going to proceed back to the work of the district conference, and I pass you along to Tammy Coleman, who will be leading us in a time of prayer. Have a great night.